Hello! Welcome to Cosmic Divide, episode number 51, the Masters Toronto preview. Or is it a preview? We'll get into that. Because today I'm joined by William Chobra, all the way across the world in Korea. How are things going in Korea and for you, Chobra?
It was going well until you reminded me that there was a small chance I could have been in Toronto with Nongshim Murdered Force, and then I was reminded that I'm here. But it's going pretty well. I'm glad it's only just a couple days, or I guess by the time this goes out, that Toronto will have started, because it feels like it's been just the right amount of time.
Yes, we've had a little break, I don't even know what to call it. It feels like a bit of a mini off season. It's a bit strange.
Yeah.
I personally I've kind of enjoyed this time. I still feel it would make more sense to have the big international and then have a bigger break. Feels like we've had particularly for like the Americas and China teams, it wasn't maybe as bad because of how EMEA played out. So it kind of actually, personally for me, it kind of worked out pretty well. And Chobra, you've been co-streaming as well now as well. You'll see. If you had to do it last year, you would have seen the horror that is like the final couple days of playoffs, where it is like multiple days, maybe 3-4 days in a row, 16-hour streams. You literally can't leave your chair. The chair is sweaty. It feels not very nice. Everything feels kind of like, because it's like summer as well. Like particularly this Masters, is the worst one, because it's like hot, sweaty. You're there all the time. It's not a nice experience for like 4 days. You're then just so tired. But yeah, this one was not too bad, and I think the little break has. I'm really excited to watch Valorant. Like I'm coming into this tournament, and I'm like, I can't wait for this tournament.
Exactly. Yep, I'm with you right there.
But it doesn't matter anyway, because today we're actually going to see. For some of you who don't know what happens really, people like me, Chobra, the broadcast people, all that. We actually get given the scripts beforehand, and we just have to play our part. So today, we're kind of going to go against protocol. I didn't think I'd quite get away with it on Pledchat, so I kind of thought, we can get away with it here. And kind of reveal what's going to happen, basically. So we're going to do the pre-Toronto awards, basically. So we're going to just reveal what the script is going to say to you, and hopefully we've got the same script. Hopefully you got the same script that I did, Chobra. It's quite an interesting one. Quite an interesting one. But just before we do that, I thought we would take, because we talked about this on Pledchat, and you submitted your top 10 to Pledchat, right? You were one of the people who submitted for your Pledchat list, but you didn't get to explain fully your list on on one of these ventures. No. So I thought this would be a good chance for Chobra for you to explain this, right? Explain what was going on here. You got little Chobra over here, past Chobra.
A couple weeks younger. Chobra.
Yeah. Take me through this list. Let's start from 10 and work our way to 1. So you've got Bang in 10, which I think is starting off with a pretty interesting selection.
I do agree that it was a bit of an interesting one. Bang was one of those because I like to think that at the end of the day, I do favor players who show that like X factor, right? A little bit more of the hero play, a little bit more taking the game into your own hands. So this time I wanted to make sure that I was at least keeping in mind the players that I thought were also like, they're just good. They're good for 1, they're good for 2. And I feel like Bang, quite frankly, I think Bang's just been doing that throughout most of his career, even before Sentinels. But now, obviously, the Sen branding, the eyes on Sentinels, and also just kind of how Sentinels plays, I think that it was spotlighted a bit more. And I think that deserved a shout out because I feel like Bang was generally very, very consistent. And then when push comes to shove, he still had a little bit of that extra kick where he was able to contribute a lot more impact than, otherwise compared to some other players. But at the same time, it's not like he has high highs and low lows. So to me, that was pretty big. He had a pretty high clutch percentage, one of the highest, I believe, at Masters Toronto in terms of, everyone in their own region. So I just think I felt like he was a very good rank 10, you're a top 10 player, but you don't have the X factor to be Yeah, like
Yeah,
top
like
three or
I always
whatever.
see number 10 as like you can do something interesting with number 10. You can put someone
Yeah.
kind of interesting in that spot if you want to. Number 9 you've got Rienz, which I feel like is a less controversial take. You know, I think I had him at
Yeah.
6. I think generally we will take a look at the other lists. I just want to get your take on some of the other lists as well. But Rienz
The
I think
thing
is
with
a
Rian's,
yeah, go on.
yeah, the thing with Rian's, I think that will be controversial is probably when you put it in relation to who I have right above him, which is going to be
Yes,
Crashies. And I
yes,
think a
no,
lot of people.
yes. I was gonna get to that in a second, but yeah, you can go straight there. For some reason, you put Crashies at 8. Let's hear it.
Hold on, hold on. So, okay, I think Rian's being in the top 10 is not controversial at all, right? Like
No,
we
no,
just
no.
know he's one of the best players that we've seen. He's very consistent on the initiator role, and I would argue that he might, in fact, be one of the more impactful players on Heretics. I would say, surprisingly enough, right? Like I think others have a little bit more of that up and down. So I think it's just pretty straightforward on why he's there. Now I think we have to talk about this in relation to Crashies. So to me, in fact, while I just said that Rians might be one of the more impactful players on Heretics, I think because of the way the teams play, Crashies had more chances to really bring home the round that they like needed to continue on, and he didn't disappoint. He delivered almost every time, at least all the live matches I was watching in Fnatic. And I feel like he was already pretty okay during kickoff, but obviously overall Fnatic improved a ton coming to stage 1. And so while if you just took straight stats, obviously Rian's trumps pretty much across the board, like just by a little bit. But to me, it was the fact that this dude had 13 clutches in just stage 1, Crashies. Talking about Crashies. And I think those rounds were the ones where it's like, can Fnatic stay ahead, right? Can they keep the momentum? Things like that. And it's like, otherwise, he's just doing his job, supporting Kayak, whatever else it might be. And I think also not reading into it too much, because obviously these are not objective, but I feel like the way he plays now they've gotten kind of back to, this is dangerous territory, because obviously we don't want to compare everyone to Leo, but I'm just saying, getting back to this form of like, he's holding enough down that Boaster can also do his own thing as the IGL. So I'm just seeing that chemistry as well.
I still think it's a bold pick. I still think everyone else on the
Apparently
list,
a lot of people do.
everyone else on the list, I think was either on most people's lists or certainly in, like top 15s, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Crashies, I think you've gone a little bit rogue there, if I'm gonna be honest. And
think...
honestly, if Crashies was on the list and below Rienz, I'd be like, yeah, cool. The fact that you put him above Rienz, I'm a bit skeptical, to be honest.
Okay, but would you, regardless of Rienz, would you say that you're okay with Crashies as like a top 15?
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I think you could argue for that.
Okay.
I don't think. Like, I think that this was, and a lot of everyone always, this tournament was this was the hard. It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
Like like the Masters Bangkok one, there was like 7 names that like was on everyone's top. The top 7 were like all the same on everyone's list. In some maybe slightly different order, and then it was just like 3 players. Pick 3 players that you like.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was. This one was genuinely way more difficult. There was a lot of different things to consider in this one, and okay, you've ended up with Crashies there. Zekken in 7, which we'll get to, because I had Zekken even lower, which again I said was a mistake on Pledge Chat, and I wish I put him higher. Probably around where you've put him here, but I think that's perfectly normal. But as we'll look at some of like the later lists that I want you to react to, Zekken is much higher, but I don't think that's a crazy position for Zekken to be, personally. Now, you have got Forsaken above Zekken. I do want to talk about that, because I do think that whilst, again, most people would have and did have Forsaken on their list, I don't think most people had Forsaken above Zekken. Although I technically was one of them. But upon reflection, I would swap that. Would you swap that if you could right now?
No, but I don't think I would ever have them more than one apart.
Okay.
No matter where they were on the list, right? Like to me, these two really are the epitome of like, what are you valuing here, right? Are you valuing a little bit more of that like on the fly X factor? The flexibility obviously always has to come into question with Forsaken. Like I think Forsaken's one of those players, and I talked about that in my list as well, where I'm not trying to put in too much weight on intangible factors. But when a guy is playing every single role at, in a best of five, playing every single, across different agents, like it's not just the different agents, but that you're swapping roles every single map, like every single match. To me, that's like, okay, well, you got to give credit a little bit on that end. So I think that's where I favor him. The thing with Zekken is, and I may regret this depending on how they play, but I felt that I was really high on him going into like prepping for the list. I was like, all right, Zekken's probably top 5 for me.
Yeah.
But then as I continued to watch VODs, etc., I kept thinking it might just be that I'm excited about the progress that Zekken continues to make season after season. I feel like he continues to remind people that he still has more of that potential left, that he was supposed to be that Wunder child, and he still is, but he's like got more room to show. And I think I buy that so highly that I had to kind of temper myself of being like, yeah, like, no, he's getting even better. Like, he's clearly very important for how Sentinels plays. But if I were to take him in a vacuum, would I rate him as high currently? Maybe not. Maybe down the road.
I think Zekken is a very interesting case where a lot, like, Zekken, was very, like, when he was playing on Xset or whatever, he was very young and clearly very, very good. Obviously, now he's playing for Sentinels for a while. They've won a Masters. And despite, like, I remember there has been tournaments where Zekken, it might have even been Madrid, where Zekken, was kind of universally rated as the top player, right? And then they won a Masters, and so it's like, oh. But I've never really felt like I feel like the hype for Zekken has always been he's going to be in, like, who's the greatest player of all time kind of discussions. And obviously he's still got quite a career ahead of him. But he doesn't really get brought up very, like, too often in those conversations. Often when people talk about who's the greatest player of all time in Valorant, most people would probably lean like, Aspas. Some people might mention Durka, some of the stuff that he's done. And, other people might throw out other names or whatever. And maybe Zekken is towards, like, the end of that list, but I feel like his potential, his hype, what people expect Zekken to be, is that he should be, like, almost prime candidate for that. Like, he should be mentioned with Aspas of, like, oh, it's between these two, and it's tough to decide. But I don't quite feel that just yet. And we'll get to that because, again, your list is highlighting this pretty well. Let's move to the top 5, which is the same top 5 as me in a slightly different order. And I think that separating these top 5 was extremely difficult. So talk me through your process of how you went about separating this top 5.
So actually for me, Leaf was kind of the easiest part, I would say. Where Leaf is, again, for me, that guy who's like, okay, I know he's gonna always put up like minimum A minuses across the board. And so it's just like a safe top 5 pick. It's kind of like the same reason I would put Bang in 10th, right? I'm like, okay, he's top 5 material, but, partially maybe because he's playing Sentinel, right? So he doesn't always have the opportunity to just take the entire game into his hands. Would I easily rate him above these other candidates who have had so many opportunities and they seized it to just change the fate of their team? Maybe not. But, I don't think it'd be hard to argue that I'd put him below. So to me, eventually it was that thing where it's like, no, I know you're in top 5. I can't think of a reason you would ever go lower than that. But these other guys, like I'm seeing like, well, I could favor this, right? I could favor the clutches. I could favor the opping, like whatever the craziness that you're doing on your own. Whereas Leaf is the guy that if you're G2, you're relying on him, right? Things go south, we know we can count on Leaf. And it's like, if you rate that highly, that's fine. I would have no complaints if you rated him higher. But it's just one of those things where it's like, all right, yeah, you're just super solid across the board.
Okay. Talk me through then. So, I mean, I had Leaf in 5th as well. So I guess I somewhat agree with you there that maybe Leaf was slightly separate from the top 4 because the top 4 I really, like, struggled with.
The top 4 was hard. Kayak for me comes up next because, and this is one of those where I think because his career is so short, maybe I'm a little unfair to him where I'm thinking back to like beginning of stage 1 and even kickoff a little bit where I'm like, oh, but I do remember these games where you just took forever to warm up and your team needed to really babysit you and they did it and you did well eventually. But, you weren't always able to take it into your own hands. You didn't always come in confident like you did in the finals and start with an ace on the pistol round, right? So that's the thing. Because if you look at the stats, it wasn't just the grand finals. Like in stage 1, this dude was ridiculous, right? He had one of the highest untraded first skills per round, which is crazy. That means he's going out and doing exactly what you need a duelist to do. So that's great, but I couldn't shake that feeling of like, oh, but I do remember those games pretty distinctly. And then, you're going to Toronto, like, if that starts again in the first game, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. I mean, I found this incredibly difficult, and I think it probably is just like, here's the thing that I thought about this, right? Looking back, is if this name was Durka instead of Kayak, but Durka put up the same numbers, he might be one. I think the only doubt, is really that, oh, we haven't seen you play at an international, and if you had and done well, we might put you number 1.
Now that you say that, in fact, yeah, if his name was Durka and it was the same exact numbers, yeah, I think I would have actually put him at 1. You are correct. That's actually insane. That's very unfair to Kayak.
Yeah, which is crazy. But it's not that the others are but that's I think that I mean, we'll get to Jemkin in a second, but specifically for Trent and Aspas, and I ended up putting Trent 1. I actually, the only difference in our top 5s was I swapped Aspas and Trent.
Right.
Well, let's start with Trent. Did you have a Teo nerf? Did that come into your consideration? Because for me, I just went, I don't care. Trent's good.
Well, no, I think the Teo nerf is slightly blown out of proportion. Like, I get the argument of, well, would he play as well with Silva, like as good as Silva was? Like, I get it. It's like the same argument people had for freeing. Like, he's great, but the Teo definitely helps him. So yeah, probably true. But I just think the numbers he's putting up and the ability, the balance that he has of like assists and top frags, like in multiple different games, is really impressive for the position he's playing, right, as the main initiator. So and then you think back, it's like, yeah, it's not like he was ever like struggling on recon initiators. So I didn't really count that against him. But this is the top 3 is where I just straight up said, do I think this person has more X factor? Because I thought they were so close. So it's like, if I think this is what the game revolves around for both teams, like they're just going to get ranked higher.
Okay. So you base these top 3 on they're kind of like big
Basically
game. Who would you pick to play in a big game?
Yes. Yeah. Basically. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, also and in that, maybe indirectly, I was considering a little bit of like, how often do you show up in the big games, right? As an individual, not just your team. So,
yeah, I think that's a fair way of doing it. I will say that I partially put Trent number 1 as an argument against all those people who say that he's not going to play as well. And I'm just waiting for him to be the highest rated player, and I'll just laugh at everyone and say, aren't you all stupid? And I was right. Ha 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 ha. Like, G2 win this tournament and Trent's the MVP, and I just go laughing away, and everyone else is like, wow, Trent really was the best player.
Oh, wow.
But let's talk about Jemkin, because Jemkin, I think, is a very interesting choice, because what we said about Kayak, like, I mean, you could also, like, I know he's played in the Essential Final, but again, he's never played, and again, they're starting in the playoffs, so he will literally only be playing against the best teams, right? Like, he will literally only be playing against the best teams on a bigger stage than, anyone in ROQ has ever been. I think most people recognize that Jemkin, I mean, his numbers are insane.
They're so crazy.
They're so insane. And I think his... And the eye test as well is also insane, because there are many rounds where and sometimes it's so smooth. It's so satisfying. There are some players that are just very satisfying to watch. Zeus is one from Foot as well, where when they're on and they just start hitting shots, it's like, it's just so nice to see. Like, it's just, they know instantly, like, it's just so clean and nice. And Jemkin is one of them when he's on. It's just like, you're dead before. Like, it's like he's predicted your death and you're already dead. Why?
I think
what I wanted to ask you though, you said it was rated on X Factor. Why do you have faith in Jemkin and his first big international? Why do you have faith in Jemkin that he isn't like with Kayak?
So here's the thing is that, and again, this is maybe a little unfair to Kayak just because Jemkin's played for obviously a year longer in terms of tier 1 play. But Jemkin, one of my qualms with Jemkin until this year was that he played too safe. Like he played too correct. You could literally, if you go back to their games in last year, you would watch it and you'd be like, oh, Jemkin views Valorant this way. You could just figure out what he's thinking, because it's like, okay, the position he's holding or the rounds where he saves, it's like, oh, he thinks this is a bad idea. But there were a ton of RQ games last year where it's like your ranked games, right? You know you shouldn't be going in for this retake, and you stop and your two teammates go in, and now you're just screwed. And Jemkin's like, well, I guess I'm just saving. And like you would see this a lot where it's like, yeah, but maybe you should just go for it, even if it's not the correct play, because you are just better. Like maybe you should just prove that at some point. And I think this year, whether it's the chemistry, the meta, whatever else is, or maybe they talked about it, he started doing that. There are rounds where you can tell from the round start, Jemkin's thinking, this is my round. Like, I must win this round, and I will. And he does. And so, to me, that evolution of him deciding that he has to take it by the reins, and it reflects again on the numbers, the eye test across the board, I would say, that gives me a lot of faith in that team. I would also argue that I think I've seen this discussion a lot where it's like, is Jemkin also one of those players that's like purely set up by his team? You know, we have these duelists. Like Ospas is one of those where it's like the team revolves around Ospas, right? But it's like Jemkin, I think, is a little split. And I would argue while he is on that half, he is less than some of like Ospas or even Kayak, in my opinion. I think he has a little bit less babysitting being done. It's more his own decisions of does he work with the team or on solo. So I just rate all of that over that, and I think his numbers are also just a bit more consistent than Kayak, right? So that's where he
consistently
separates
insane
himself.
Is what they are. But let's finally talk about number one, Aspas. You don't really need to justify it too much, because I think if you were going from a sort of sense of like if it was a fantasy draft of all the players who would go number one, I think you would have a pretty strong argument that Aspas would go number one, even above IGLs. I think you might say like, we can build a team around Aspas, and there's enough good IGLs in the rest of the tournament that, you know, we'll make it work. And Aspas will be a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just straight up what it is. I also, again, think that team revolves a bit more around Aspas, so I think he might have just a bit more freedom, and he's used to that. He knows what to do with it, right? So maybe you rate them similarly in terms of actual skill of what they've shown so far, but Aspas perhaps I'm considering as a higher percentage of showcasing the peaks at a big stage.
Yeah, now there is one player I want to ask about, which was on your little chats list, not in order. You got Miniboo and Nats who weren't on your list, which I think is perfectly fine and normal. I want to ask you about Raga, though, who is also on your chats list.
Oh.
Why is Raga not on your list?
Okay, Raga, first of all, let's take away the narrative of like China's easy to farm. Okay, let's take that out for now. Let's say that doesn't exist, because I don't think it really exists in terms of numbers, because we all agree that China has a lot of aimers, right?
Yeah, there's all the same people to kill.
Yeah, exactly. So I, even without that though, initially I wondered, I kept thinking, like, just off of memory and eye test, like, would Raga be in top 10 or not? And some people were convinced he would be. And then I was going back, I watched a couple of games, but then I'm looking at the numbers, and his numbers actually don't stand out as much as you would think or remember. I mean, obviously you don't have all the stats either, but even just straight up just like kills zest, like max kills, the max kill death differential, things like that. And compared to the top duelists, you still have a couple more of those slight dips, right? Not like he's, completely burning out, but, and to me, if you are meant to be like, he is absolutely the star, right? We all agree on that, of that team. But if you're not putting up numbers where just objectively we all agree that you're top 10 material, then I'm like, I can't even argue for you, because your one job is to put up the numbers at that point, because you're the star player, you're a duelist, you are going off and, taking frags into your own hands. Now, I will say that I think in stage one, they've been playing more as a team compared to in the past where he was more like a Vukashu. So that's good for XLG. But I put him, I think I eventually, because we had to put 15 for Plat Chat, I think I put him at like 12 or 13 eventually. So he was close.
Okay.
But yeah, if I had to choose between, right, like a superstar, I'm picking him for X Factor, etc., but he's like not that high, versus a Bang, who I'm just like, oh, I can plug him into whatever team and I think he's going to do well. Like, I'm picking Bang over him, basically.
Okay, I see. Well, now it's time, I think, for you to roast my list. Again, as I say, we largely agree on the top 5. We had a few similar names here, 6 to 10 as well. I suppose Bang would be,
Yeah,
well, in
Bang's
Karashi's.
missing.
Bang is missing, yeah, from my list.
Yeah. Yeah, the Crashy's missing. I've just accepted that people have forgotten that he exists for some reason. Like okay, just so we're clear, I felt so justified when some of the Korean casters got together and made their own list, but they didn't do like a full powering. They just did tiers of players.
Yeah.
And one of them, who some of you might remember, goes by Locomotive, used to coach, the old FRQ at Masters Berlin. So a Masters attending coach was like, all right, nobody's mentioning him, so I got to use my own ticket to put him in S tier. And he also put Crash in S tier. So I'm not entirely alone on planet Earth to rate him highly. But anyway,
there you go.
moving away from Crashies, I have a question about YZ. I was kind of surprised that YZ was, in my head, fairly high on your list.
I think probably for most people, they might see YZ in a top 15 and think that's fairly high. The reason that, well, I mean, this is, and I don't like to do this a ton, but as you will see later on as well, with this is maybe a little bit of the script got leaked to me, and I think. And Sideshow, was making a strong case on Pledger against YZ as well, right? In terms of, he just he's just a lunatic, plays crazy, and just like, yeah, he's got very good numbers, but he in terms of actually playing the game, how Sideshow likes it, for instance, he wasn't a fan. My counter argument to that would be, Jing has been in the top 5 of many of these lists. And Jing doesn't play the game properly, and certainly didn't back then. Not at all. And so I think at a certain level, if that's just the way you play, but you still farm, like at a certain point, I just have to go like, okay, you don't play. Like, again, if I was coaching BLG, would I tell YZ to not do that?
Well,
no. I don't think I would. I think I would build my system. If I was BLG, I'd build my system around, let's just enable him to just go crazy as much as he can, because he's our best player, and I think that I don't know, I just it was just a nice little thing. Like, in reality, do I think the Texture is a better player than YZ? Yeah, of course. There are players who aren't on this list as well that I think are overall better players than him. But I personally as well like the list to be kind of, I do like them to be recency biased, because otherwise you just end up with the same list all the time. Like, we can all put fucking Aspas 1 and Zekken in the top 3 and like, oh, Trent's up there again, and like, we could all do that every single time if we want to. But then you're just doing a historical rating just every couple months. So I personally like it to be that, and I think that YZ's impact for BLG was, maybe not quite as high like as a Jumpkin for RRQ or even Kayak for Fnatic potentially, but I still thought it was pretty high. And if you put in an average player for YZ for BLG, they wouldn't be sniffing this tournament.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be sniffing.
That's fair. Yeah.
Okay,
I agree with YZ enabling him. Yeah. I do have one more question.
Go on.
About, well, I guess, in relativity, it makes sense. Like, I'm totally fine with Texture actually being lower than YZ for this tournament. I'm fine with Texture being lower than Charon, but I'm just wondering, is Charon and maybe partially Texture, are they both there simply because they, like, overall as a team, they did wake up a little bit in playoffs?
Yes, partly. Like, I would say again, like, if I was doing my list again, Zekken would be higher. And after the top 10, I felt like there was a lot of names you could put here, right? Like, from 11 to like 25, it's probably all very close. The reason that and I just felt like Karen had maybe a slightly bigger impact in some of the rounds, the crucial rounds that Genji needed to win. So that's kind of why I put him over Texture. I didn't feel like, personally, I feel like Texture didn't play that well for his stand. Like, I feel like he had a lot extra to give. So you could even argue I've put Texture on here, maybe even as like a bit of a throwing him a bone of like, I know you are good. So like, if you do go insane, I can at least say, well, you were on my top 15 because you might.
The positive reinforcement cycle of like, I know you can do better.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I
you
know
can
you're
be
good.
better. You can be better.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
let's now take a look at the overall. So this was all of the Plat Chat people's ranking.
Right.
So me and you are included in this, but this is
Right.
the overall list. And what I was quite shocked about, and I guess this is just the way that it worked out in terms of, like, I was quite surprised that Jemkin
Mhm.
ended up number 1 personally, and like by like
Yep.
10 points, right? This isn't like
A
if you
lot.
look Kayak to Leaf to Aspas and Leaf, like they're all really close. But Jemkin actually
Mhm.
has a bit of a margin. Now, if I had to guess, that's because probably literally everyone had him in the top 3.
Yeah.
But maybe not everyone had him neither of us had him number 1, for instance.
Right.
What do you think about Jemkin number 1?
I think this is, like you said, more of a consensus of you can't argue against him being out of top 3. But while I put Aspas as 1, like I could see a world where someone puts like a combination of Trent, Leaf, Jemkin in the top 3. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
because of like how well G2 does, etc. So it's like, yeah, I could see Aspas being pushed out. Obviously, I, along with you, didn't put Kayak in top 3 either. So like those I can see the arguments, but Jemkin is probably one where you're like, ooh, I'm gonna look like an absolute ass if I don't have Jemkin in my top 3, just because of the sheer numbers he's putting up, regardless of whether you even saw the matches or not. So that's probably more a culmination rather than we all actually believe collectively that he's like number 1.
My other massive gripe with this list, as someone who's put Trent number 1, and you put him 3, I couldn't believe that there is a gap from Leaf to Trent and that Leaf is above Trent. I could not believe that. I thought that was crazy. I in fact, it almost like it actually annoys me that it's like, why are you like Trent has probably been like the best player of 2025, like overall. Like
Yeah,
if you were to give an MVP of the entire season so far, it's probably Trent. Why
I think that's
then?
fair.
Like that you're just predicting that, oh, Teo got nerfed, even though Trent has been a top performer before on other initiators. To think
I mean,
like,
this is
I don't know, it annoys
simply
me.
why Cosmic Divide is just obviously better than
Yeah,
Plat Chat.
yeah. It does actually annoy me because I feel like he's being punished for something that's not out of his
Me
control,
too.
despite being the best player of the entire year.
I think, yeah, like I'm okay with, is he not 1, right? Is he not 2? Like I'm fine with that. And maybe not even top 3 for some people. But like you said, for there to be a gap between him and Leaf, even, right? Not even
Yeah,
like us, but the other duelists.
yeah.
That, like you said, and you guys talked about it on Plat Chat, that just tells you that people wanted to nerf him because of Teo. But then it's like, okay, let's say Teo does get nerfed. Sure, he might not be as dominant across the board, but he's still a very strong top 5 player, if not a contender for top 3 with Sova, right? Like, in what world are we suddenly thinking like Teo bad, so now Trent bad? And also like as if G2's not going to figure out a way to play around Trent as a great initiator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like none
And he
of this
wasn't
makes
even
sense to
playing
me.
full Teo in kickoff and was farming. I was like
Yeah.
one of the highest rated
Yeah.
players. Like, yeah, it does annoy me. But I'm interested in the kind of second half of this list as well, right? A lot of familiar names, right? Zach Forsaken, Raga,
Yeah.
Rienz. But Texture did make it, which again I found quite interesting that Texture made the list, and you seem to agree.
Here's the thing. I obviously really like Texture. He is a great player. Obviously, we know what he's capable of ceiling wise. I know this is a lot of disclaimers, but I just have to put that out there because like he was rather disappointing actually for stage 1. Like especially compared to his own standards. But you know what surprised me is that like, okay, I think I agree with you that I think Charon probably had more memorable impact rounds in playoffs, right? But then if anything, Foxy9 put up like
Yeah.
the best numbers for Gen G throughout stage 1.
Statistically,
So like
he was their best player, yeah.
yeah, so like how is Texture
But we both hate the way Foxy9 plays.
Yeah, I mean I hate the way Foxy9 plays sometimes. But it's just I want to ask people because I wonder if it's simply you think the important rounds he did win are just important enough, right? Like in the same vein that I'm like counting, let's say, crashies, right? Where, oh, like I think his clutches are enough. Or if it is really just slightly rose tinted glasses. Because I can't, like the whole time I was watching Gen G this year, I couldn't help but think like, I think Texture's struggling a little bit compared to what we know. Like, he's not a bad player by any means,
Yeah.
you know? It's not like he's nerfed, but he's playing a lot of the Neon, which is better than the past, but that's obviously not his best agent. The team is, like, working around Foxy and I, and none of this is his fault, but he's not popping off. And even last year, quite frankly, it was more Meteor that was more reliable than Texture, right? So, like, he has high peaks, but I was very surprised, but I had to hold my tongue because otherwise the Pacific fans would come after me. So
Well,
yeah,
let's talk about the fans, because the fans list is a joke. This is a joke of a
dude,
list.
Oh, that was. I
To-
mean,
and the way that this is done as well, like, I mean, obviously, like, this is a plat check community ranking, right? So it's almost certainly a lot of people who watch maybe mostly Americas, maybe a bit of EMEA, and maybe some Pacific, right? And I think that, and particularly if you don't play for, you know, a big org, I feel like, you know, players who play, I would almost want the entire list for this, because I would bet, like, if you're a star player on a lesser org, or like not a kind of, you know, Tiffany, you know, franchise org, like shiny glittery org, then you are gonna get punished on this list, because people just don't watch you as much, right? Like the people who are doing this list, they just don't watch, and that's fine. But again, it's ended up with a list that I think you just can't trust. But then again, maybe we're wrong, right? Maybe the community will end up, you know, looking very good out of this.
They could. I do want to say, in some ways, I kind of liked it just because I think it does give shout outs to players like we know are good. They just didn't have as much shining moments, or maybe they had like a bit of a fall off, right? Jogamo overall, like very good, but they don't revolve around him. Texture had a bit of a fall, you know, wasn't as good. Miniboo had a bit of a crash out in the finals, right? So, like, yeah, they still get their flowers a little bit. So I'm happy with that. Like, I don't think any of those players are undeserving, let's say. It's just the order they're in, the gaps between, like, you know, Jemkin and Ospas, like those are the ones where you're like, okay, maybe, you know, these are people who have healthy lifestyles that don't binge every single region.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I will also say as well, because a lot of people will take a look at this list and be like, oh yeah, the community knows nothing because all the duelists, you know, it's just a bunch of duelists. I mean, my argument against that would be, well, yeah, most of the best players tend to play duelist so that they can go and carry and win the first fight. Like, most of the best players in the world do play duelist. Most star players play duelist. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, and when the game was first forming, you know, and whatever, right? Like, Texture plays duelist. He didn't always play duelist, but he can carry you on duelist. So we're gonna play him on duelist. Like, if you're a duelist who isn't very good, guess what? You get cut, or you move to another role where you aren't put in the fray straight away, right? Like, that's just the way. So the duelists who survive and get to these tournaments, they're the best players often. So actually, I don't think that is a problem with the list. But I still think that this list isn't that great. But anyway, moving on from that, let's now move on. So we've done top 10s. We're now gonna talk about Masters Toronto and leaking some scripts. They're gonna get leaked. Okay, so we've got some categories that we're gonna go through, talking about Masters Toronto and what is going to happen in this tournament. Of course, it is a tournament of 12 different teams. Unfortunately, VLR doesn't let you show that. It only lets you show 8 and then the other 8. I think actually, Chobra, before we get into that though, I saw that you had done a Pick'ems video. I hadn't watched it. So I do just want to quickly get your take on, let's just start with Swiss, shall we? We won't actually pick the games, but let's just go through Swiss. Like, what, in fact, let's do percentages. Let's do percentages that they get out of Swiss for each of these 8 teams. Wow. Okay, let's just start at the top because they're here. Let's start with Sentinels. What is Sentinels' percent of getting out of Swiss?
This is, I don't feel good about putting this number on there, but I think Sentinels has a 90% chance of making out of Swiss simply because they have a 99% chance to start 1-0.
Oh, get off.
They do. They do. They literally the easiest pick 'em matchup of the Swiss stage. And I think you start 1-0. Like, I mean, you're guaranteed to start 1-0. That's your percentages shoot up, no matter who you meet afterwards.
I agree that Sentinels are perhaps the most likely team to get out of Swiss. To say they have a 99% chance of beating Wolves is an absolute disgrace, and you're lucky I haven't just kicked you off this show right now.
Okay.
However,
I won't ask for your number. We won't put you on the spot.
Okay. But Sentinels 90%. So 9 out of 10 times Sentinels make it out of Swiss.
Yes.
I think that might be a little high, but I'm willing to go along that it should be pretty high.
Yeah.
I'd maybe bump it down to 5%, but whatever. Let's go. MIBR. Now this one is more interesting. Where are your stocks on MIBR? What is their chance of getting out of Swiss?
I think MIBR probably. First. Yeah. I think MIBR has like they have a 50%.
Ooh, straight 50-50 for MIBR.
Yeah. The reason I say that is I think MIBR is a team where I'm like, yeah, if they get good matchups, I think they could win or lose against Shenji, right? But it's like kind of matchup dependent.
Okay. I think most people would probably go a little lower. I personally am a bit high. I'm quite high. I think most people are a bit low on MIBR. But
that's true. Yeah.
That's the kind of sense that I've got. Whereas I'm more high. I'm more bullish on MIBR. So I'm happy to go 50-50 with you though. I'm happy. Like okay. I would put it around 50, something like that. Yeah. Billy, another interesting one, because they obviously play a somewhat compromised Team Liquid. So I would guess that they're favorites for that first game, but.
I am a bit of a. I've recently learned that Billy may be the team that I've learned to hate watch. Like I never really hate watched before, but I've recently been told that I may have been hate watching Billy. I think it's kind of the same of what you similar vein of what you said about Wisey, where I'm like, I would almost rather see them just all in ongoing crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like they are doing more correct Valorant, but they're not as good at it, so it's like you
might as well just lean into Paper Rex.
Yeah, to me. So I'm a bit like
you're a hater.
Yeah. So percentage wise, I would say getting out of Swiss, I would put them at like 30.
Okay. I think that's. Are
you okay with that?
I think if people think they should be lower, I think they're wrong, because I think this first game they should be favorites for. So if you think that they're gonna win the first game, then they have 2 chances to just win 1 game, and that's that's not too hard, right? That's doable. And they could obviously get a good matchup, right? You get an upset somewhere else, and you end up with when Wolves beat Sentinels, we could get Wolves versus BLG. So you never know.
Oh my, yeah. If that happens, I mean, the world is just out against Nongshim, because if Billy can get that matchup and Nongshim can't be at Toronto, there's just something grossly wrong.
So yeah, I think that's a fine percent. Okay, Wolves.
Oh wait, no. Easy correction. You can just take out the last 2 digits of that, and then
that'll be the percentage. I thought you were gonna say take off 1 digit.
I mean, okay, but okay. Legitimately, who do you think we assume you have to agree that even if they get wins, it would be upsets, right? Against anybody here.
Yeah.
So who
Ball as low as 30%. So to win 30% would give them 9%. 10%.
10. I mean, I'll settle for 10. Since we're doing
it is at least 10, by the way. Every team in an 8-team Swiss has at least a 10% chance. This is a pro Valorant team. This is not like a joke. Like they have a 10% chance. They definitely at least, if you ran this tournament 10 times, they would get out of Swiss at least once.
Yes, they could. Yeah. I think it's like slightly lower, but yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Gen G. You've been hating on them a little bit, so let's put them
I
at 10%.
have been. No, 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 no. I don't. I think Gen G. Gen G is weird. Gen G is weird. Oh, I'm gonna go with like 55 if we can
Oh,
do
okay.
fives.
So
Yeah.
slightly more
Where would
likely than
you be?
MIBR. Can I ask who did you pick for the Gen G MIBR game?
Gen G.
Oh, okay. But you
Yeah.
accept that there's still a decent chance MIBR do win.
Yeah. And here's why. Because I just keep seeing this video play in my head of them playing on Haven, and Foxy9 is just standing next to his silly little poison cloud, and Osbos is coming for him, and Verno's gonna throw whatever utility, and Foxy9 might get Verno, but he's not getting Osbos in that scenario in a 2v1. And I just fear for that. But yeah, otherwise I'm kind of giving Gen G a punt, just like with the faith that I have in coaching staff, etc.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I think that's.
Are you without
I'm a
even
little
just
more
the
down on
matchup?
Gen G, so I'm actually gonna bring them down to 50.
Okay.
We're gonna
I
go
mean, I'm okay
straight
with a
50-50.
50. I'm gonna give it a 50.
Okay, now this one I am very interested to see what you'll say. Where are your stocks on Paper
Oh,
Rex?
to get out of Swiss.
To get
To
out
get
of
out of
Swiss.
Swiss, I would say
They have a tough first game in Heretics,
they do have a tough game.
which might bump them
But
down a bit.
yeah, so if that pulls them down a bit, I think like a 65.
Really? So you're see, this is what I was interested to know. Is would you have Paper Rex more likely than Gen G?
I do.
Despite the fact they've got
I
a harder
do.
first game. So 65. So still so even though they're gonna be underdogs, I would suggest by most people's, understanding.
Really?
You don't think Paper
See,
Rex will be underdogs against Team Heretics?
uh, I don't. I see that as a 50-50 game.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they're
Okay,
favored. I don't think they're
interesting.
favored. But yeah, I see that. But you're right. Everyone's been telling me that I'm crazy. Everyone's like, no,
I
this is
think
more like a
most
70
people
30.
Oh, I don't think it's a 70-30, but I think Heretics are
Okay.
favored. I think it's more like a 60-40
60
Heretics.
40. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but I still think that they are underdogs in that game. And
But overall, how do you feel about them like bouncing back even if they do lose? Ooh.
not well, I mean that's the thing. It depends who you get, right? Like they could get someone that
That
they'll be
after that,
pretty
it's
favored
matchup.
against.
Okay.
But if
All right.
like I don't know, I mean I kind of want to see Paper X play MIBR because that would just kind of be fun, I think. But
That would be
like
fun.
I would worry a little bit, like if MIBR are shooting, like it might just get
Yeah.
like out aimed and kind of just lose.
They've got aimers.
But if they got someone like, well, yeah, I don't know. It might be interesting. Like I'm not as high as Paper X. Like I would be putting them
Okay.
probably closer to 50, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. So I think let's meet in the middle and go. Well, I'll give you 60.
60? Yeah, 60. Okay. I'm okay with 60.
Okay, so now talk me through your Team Heretics stock.
You're going to be surprised by this.
Oh no.
I think Heretics is at a 90.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna go low.
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna say like
exactly.
40 or something.
No,
You
no.
think Heretics
Because
is also a 90, so you have them as like almost a guarantee as well.
in fact, if it wasn't for the Wolves matchup for Sentinels, Heretics would be my like. If I had to pick one team to 100% get out, it would actually be Heretics because I feel like that is the one team where I trust that even if they lost to Paper Rex in their first matchup, which we all agree is still a tough matchup, they would bounce back. And also like it's Paper Rex, so a little bit different, etc. So that's a team where I'm like, I can trust these guys to bounce back, but like Gen G, we've seen like they generally do better when they don't have any lives left, but we've seen them falter at champs, right? Sentinels, we've seen kind of on and off depending, in the lower bracket. Like you have good times and not. And I feel like Heretics is always pretty reliable until you get to the grand final. So
Okay, I'm gonna
you knock them down.
knock them down a bit because they play a more difficult game.
Okay, fair.
But yeah, let's put them at still very high, and then finally Team Liquid.
Oof. I gotta. I mean, I would say 30. put him at the same as Billy.
I'm gonna do this.
Oh, I can't hear you all of a sudden.
Oh, can you not hear me? Hello?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say
Oh,
25.
Wait. What?
I think Billy are more likely. Well, I think Billy are favored over Liquid, and therefore are more likely to get out than Liquid if they lose that first game.
Do you? I assume this is obviously a very large part because of Nats not being in attendance for.
Yeah, if Nats was there from the entire thing, I would probably. I would still have them less than 50, I think, but I'd probably have them more like 40.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Okay, so we've got Send most likely, Heretics 2. Then I mean, so we got those two as like very likely. Then you've got kind of this big glut in the middle where you've got Paper X 3, Gen.G tied 4th, 5th with MIBR. Basically, we're probably just saying like whoever wins that game is likely to go through. Then Billy 6, Liquid 7, Wolves 8. Now, Chobra, I didn't see your video, as I said. Who did you actually have going through the Swiss? Who were your 4 teams?
I had Sentinels, Heretics, Paper X, and Gen.G. And this was exactly what it was. It was between kind of Gen.G and MIBR for me.
Okay, now, you want to know my teams? I did my pick 'em video earlier today. I had Sentinels.
Okay.
I had Team Heretics.
Don't make me disqualify your video. You're all right, Heretics.
I had Team Heretics. I had MIBR.
Fair? Oh, no. No. You didn't. No, you didn't.
And I had Billy.
You had Billy.
I had Billy.
Over both Gen.G and Paper X?
Yep, I had no Pacific teams getting through, and I just want to make your face a bit larger so people can see. Why did I do this? Good question.
Please.
Good question. Because people, like, again, my motto when it comes to pick'ems is don't try and get 80%, try and get 100%. And there will always be an upset. There will always be an upset. Going into Masters Bangkok, people thought T1 were the worst team. No one thought they would get out of Swiss. They ended up winning the tournament. But even getting out of Swiss, that was a surprise. I'm not saying BLG will win the tournament, but I'm saying that there will always... BLG beat NRG. No one predicted that to happen either. They beat them twice.
Okay.
Artist famously said, we're not losing to Billy twice. And they did. Like, no, here's the thing, right? Because this is often a problem, right? When people hear that a game is 70-30, they think, well, that team always will win. That's not how percentages work. So if you're giving Billy a 30% chance of making it,
fair.
That's almost 1 in 3. I'm just saying that basically this is the 1 in 3.
I mean,
we just live in the 1 of 3 timeline. That's not that shocking.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, to me, it just feels like you are also slightly giving not like a full punt, but a bit of belief in MIBR. So then to double down on Billy, but maybe you're just naturally higher on MIBR over like Gen.G and Paper X.
Yeah, well, yeah, I just think MIBR will win that game.
Okay.
So therefore, I just think that they're a bit more likely.
They have a good chance.
Yeah. But
okay,
that's I mean,
fair.
like, I'm not. Yeah. Again, these are just punts in the wind. Like.
Oh, I mean, I'm with you on that. I think you have to go for what you think is like the one chance that you're the 100% correct. So
yeah, I want to win that money.
I'm with you on that.
Okay. With that said, we'll now move to our predictions for things that will overall happen in the tournament. And our first category is the biggest disappointment of Masters Toronto. Now, I didn't tell you this, Chobra, but this didn't have to relate to a team. It could have been a player. It could have been anything you wanted. It could be, I'm going to say my early prediction, Sideshow's casting. Biggest disappointment.
From going from the best play-by-play of champions.
Emmy Award winner Sideshow is my Pick for the biggest disappointment. No, but it could be anything you want. It's open for you to if you want to late minute change your mind. But go on, tell me who is your biggest disappointment for Masters Toronto?
So I actually think my biggest disappointment will be Gen G. Actually.
Wow, really? Then you have them going through the Swiss.
I do, but that's why I think I'll be disappointed afterwards. If they just bombed out, I think I just wouldn't be disappointed because I kind of wasn't sure if they would actually show up or not, you know? But I just, you know, because here's the thing. I think if they get through Swiss, I'm gonna be like, oh baby, like international Gen G's back. Like they finally figured it out. Ash is looking comfy. Foxy9 has a little bit more flexibility in his positions. Like this is good. Like he outdueled Ospas. It's great. And then they'll go into playoffs, and I just don't. I have a hard time seeing them beating any of or most of the teams that are in the playoffs already. So it's like I think that hype will then get crushed. It's also because most of the other teams, like I only thought of this in terms of teams. So most of the other teams, I feel I'm already kind of set on either I'm pretty down on them or I'm pretty confident that they'll be fine. So there aren't too many candidates when it comes to teams.
Okay.
What was yours?
Well, mine was gonna be Gen G. I was gonna say that Gen G bomb out. That they don't win a game. They don't. I mean, I'm not gonna say they won't win a map. That would be a lot. But I was gonna say that they don't win a game, and that they, you know, just don't look that good either, and they just kind of go home with a whimper. That was gonna be my answer. But now you've kind of taken that in an opposite way of saying that you're gonna get built up by Gen G to then get disappointed, which is an interesting interpretation. Okay, then I guess if I had to give a different answer, I guess, and again, I don't think that they would megally disappoint, but I guess I would go Fnatic as a team that
I think that's okay.
I think a lot of people obviously are rating Fnatic as probably like, you know, top 3 at least in terms of like power ranking for the tournament. And I don't think they'll finish in the top 3. So I guess that would be a disappointment. They might not be terrible, but that's what I predict.
I am kind of surprised that neither of us said RRQ. I feel like they were a very easy candidate to be considered a disappointment. And I debated it.
Okay.
I have my reasons for having pretty strong faith, actually, compared to a lot of people. But I feel like a lot of people might have chosen RRQ, right? Where it's like you're riding the hype, Jemkin, all that, and who knows, you might bomb out from playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly. Yeah. I think a lot of people probably would have expected us to say RRQ, so I'm glad we didn't. But then again, let me ask you this as a Pacific, you know, fan and believer and former RRQ believer. Put your bias aside, your old love aside. If RRQ won a game and went out 5th, 6th, but like the games were close and they still looked decent, is that a disappointment? Like if or would you be like, yeah, that's fine?
Oh, I don't think that would be disappointment. Just because it's not like I don't think they would be. If I had to pick one team that stands out, right, in like the top 8, let's say, after a Swiss, it wouldn't actually be RRQ at the top. So I think 5th, 6th would be totally reasonable.
Okay, let's move then on to our next category, which was the biggest surprise. Brackets good. Chobra, who is your biggest surprise? Brackets good.
My biggest surprise, for a good surprise, a pleasant surprise, one might say, was going to be Rarga in XOG. Because I wasn't as big on him as compared to other people. I thought there was a good shot that he still comes up, regardless of team performance, that he's still able to, you know, prove that, like, no, it's not just China. You know, I can still farm on an international stage. And I think that would be great to see, again, regardless of where they place as a team.
Okay, I think that's a good one. Well, mine is gonna be related to my top 10 list as well, and my Preds. My biggest surprise is gonna be YZ. I'm gonna say that YZ will end up as a top 5 VLR rated player at this event. By the time it's over.
You don't have to say that to win the money from the VLR pickups.
He's gonna be my surprise. I'm
Okay.
going all in on YZ. Because again, if I think that they are gonna get out of Swiss, I mean already that's kind of a surprise. Right? Already, like
Mm.
most people would have that as a bit of a surprise. So I'm gonna go him. I did also consider just like generally saying
Ooh.
MIBR, because I think that they'll get out of Swiss and
Oh,
might win a playoff game or two as well, which I think again is probably a little higher than people expect. But you know what? No, when you said Raga, I was like, no, I'm doing it. I'm picking the boy.
that's
He's
funny
probably going
because
to go on my VFL team now as well, because I've got to triple down. Triple down on
now that
YZ.
that's crazy. Tripling down on YZ is crazy. Now that you said YZ, actually, I might even want to swap to Meaty actually on XLG.
Ooh,
Someone
okay,
who
the
perhaps has
sub.
even overall less expectations from everybody. I'm actually kind of excited because for whatever reason, I gained a lot of faith in Meaty as a player when he was on Trace. Not that they like did that well. But just like the way he was playing the positions he was taking, I was like, oh, he might be a good pickup like down the road.
Hmm.
So I think he could be a big splash for a lot of people, like a positive of like, okay, yeah, we see why you picked this guy up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, that would be kind of a cool story, and maybe would also go into
Yeah.
this category as well, which is the unexpected pop-off player. Now, I didn't really tell you too much about what I thought unexpected means, but I just generally don't pick Jemkin, right? Like don't pick Jemkin, don't pick Aspas, don't pick Kayak, don't pick the
Right.
expected pop-off players or potential MVPs or whatever.
Hmm.
Maybe someone who didn't make your top 15
Hmm.
list, right? Like who is someone that you would think like secretly they're gonna go crazy? Don't
Oh,
say crashies.
I got no, 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 no. That would be very expected. I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
I will go for crazy guy
Ooh, that is
for
an
my
interesting choice.
yeah,
I suppose a crazy guy
unexpected
would
pop
pop
up.
off both in his individual play and also his calling.
Yeah, yeah, it would be both actually. I would
Mm,
consider it for both.
okay. That is an interesting little pick just there. Um
Yeah.
See, I could cop out here and go with like safe and pick
Ooh.
like narrate or something, who I think would be, on a team that
Yeah.
you're expected to do pretty well, but that's not that unexpected. I could
No,
go
not too
crazy and
much.
say someone like Lysor.
Lysor. I like that pick actually. A little crazy. A
That
little
is a little
crazy.
crazy. One who was at the end of my top 15 list that I now think people will doubt a lot, but he was, I think, my
Yes.
number 15 was Kiko. Because Kiko, I
Yeah.
think, even if
Yeah.
Liquid struggle themselves, I think he is going to have to fucking carry this team now. He's gonna have
Yes.
to be doing mega overtime for this team, I
Hmm.
think, overall. And I think it's possible that even if Liquid lose, he goes crazy, but they lose anyway.
Yes.
Um, because I think a lot of their game plan might be, somewhat around kind of setting him up to take a lot of fights. Even though he's not
Yeah.
always playing duelist.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I could see that. I would love
Hmm.
to see that. Kiko popping off. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun. I like your RRQ pick though, because again, I think we've both. I almost would be interested in knowing like, and I guess we'll see this when the playoff predictions come in, right? And depending on who RRQ get, but I will bet that most people max out the RRQ winning one game,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I'm
Yep.
interested
Most
to
people.
see.
Yeah.
I feel like we're both giving them a bit more of a puncher's chance than others,
Yeah.
which I like. Good for the you RRQ. Go and prove everyone wrong. Um,
Finally.
Okay, next up, we've got ordering the regional performances. So we're just gonna. Well, I mean, I guess I can start because you've started on these other ones. Um,
But this is we're talking like
we're talking like
overall, like
overall region, like the three teams, and you can do it somewhat if you want to, Chobra, based on like obviously the expectations for the Chinese teams aren't as high as maybe some of the other teams,
sure.
right? So if you thought that like XLG would finish fourth or whatever, maybe that
Mm,
would be considered a bit of an overperformance, and therefore, that would be better than China if you thought like I don't know one of the other
sure.
regions was going to bomb like all three of their teams.
Sure. Sure.
So for me, obviously, I had Billy getting out of Swiss. And I probably do think that XLG, well, we'll see who they get. They could get a very hard game potentially, but if they got a reasonable game, I think they could win a game as well. So I'm not going to put China last, because despite the fact that RRQ I think won't bomb out, I'm going to put Pacific last. I've already said Gen G will disappoint.
Oh, that's true.
I don't have Paper X going through the Swiss. If RRQ only won like a game, I think that they would be considered the biggest disappointment of the tournament. I will then.
You are a hater.
I'm not a hater. I'm not a hater. But again, if I think that the two, like, again, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing that you have to consider, Chobra. If MIBR beat Gen G and Paper X lose to Heretics, they could play each other, and then one of them's going home.
True.
One of them's going home, and then if whoever wins, they get a tough matchup in the 1-1, right? Maybe Team Heretics and Acend play each other, and then they have to play the loser of that. Like, it could all go bad. It could all go bad.
True. That is
and that's
true.
The thing with Swiss. You can't, like, you might not even play that bad, but just get very bad draws and end up going home, and like you actually didn't even do that bad. But I'm gonna say the Pacific, not a hater.
Okay.
But they'll be the worst performing region. But I'm not a hater, I swear. Look, Chobra, you gotta give me some flowers, okay? Like in the Western Valorant community, I pride myself on the fact that before partnership, no one in the West was watching any Pacific bots. No one.
Okay.
It was me.
True.
Okay. It was just me. People would come into these tournaments, like, they didn't know who these teams were. I was grinding. One of my most viewed videos of all time is like Paper Rex, like coming into, I think it was Reykjavik, and me hyping Paper Rex up before Reykjavik.
Okay. All right.
So,
all right.
Give me some flowers.
A little bit of respect.
I'm an OG Pacific bandwagoner. Okay.
Okay. All right. But
anyway,
this time,
hater.
Yeah.
Third, I'm gonna have China, because again, I do think that I've got China doing, Billy doing some numbers. Wolves will obviously beat Acend. Then I'm gonna go EMEA, and then I'm gonna go America's one.
This would imply between EMEA and America's that you think an America's team is winning.
Some
or has a better chance of winning.
I think they have a
right.
I think America's has a better chance of winning. Do you know?
Right. I slightly, ever so slightly.
Okay. Well, take me through your regional ranking.
All right. Well, unfortunately, as much as I do love cheering for the underdogs, China's going to be
BLG,
last.
who you hate watch.
Apart from BLG, because I used to root for them, and now they're boring to root for, so I hate watch. So China will be last. I think they could still have just like the occasional like pleasant surprises in the game, but not seeing them placed very highly. So China will be last. A little bit torn on this, but I am gonna have to put Pacific third.
Wow, and I'm a hater. He says I'm the hater. He works for one of their teams. He's tried to big up Pacific his whole career. He's worked on that show multiple times. He goes to the show often, watches the game live in person, knows many of the players.
Okay, but here's the thing. I think it'll all make sense. Okay. Because it was tough for me to put Pacific in third. But this is overall. We're talking overall, right?
Yeah,
so overall, I think they're just because I feel like only one of the three Pacific teams will like do well, maybe even win. But I don't see a world where it's like the potential of two Pacific in, let's say, top three. I'm not really seeing that world. All right. So no matter which team it is, I feel like it's only one. And then, so the region that would then be above that would actually be America's, and then EMEA at the top.
EMEA first. Interesting.
Yes. But I'm huge on Fnatic.
Okay.
Like like all those Fnatic fans 2 years ago that were just bandwagon and everything that Fnatic was doing. Like I'm right back there. I'm back in 2023. You know, I've got my boasties going. Like I'm ready to go. I am very big on current Fnatic, and then on top of that, I feel like Heretics is always a reliable shout for like a top 3 team, no matter
Yeah.
where and no matter which meta.
Yeah.
And so while Americas might have, a particular team that everyone thinks is like prime candidate to win this tournament, I think I don't know if that's strong enough for me to put, because I feel like then the other two teams are then slightly lower in my opinion, like Fnatic and Heretics. So
Okay.
that's where I would give EMEA the slight edge in terms of overall.
Okay. I mean, that is interesting. That is that's I didn't think you I thought you were gonna go EMEA third, if I'm being honest. I thought you were gonna be like
Really?
because I think that would have been the easy cop out for you. I think as a Pacific,
Oh
like if
well,
I got Achilles on
yeah.
here, he'd
Oh
put
well,
EMEA third. He wouldn't
yeah.
even think about it. He'd put
No,
EMEA third and he wouldn't think.
no, he'd be done with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought you might go a similar way. But okay, interesting. Very interesting, I think. Very different
Yeah.
lists overall. Well, I mean, we'll see, I guess. Okay, that might somewhat give away somewhat, of what we're about to discuss. But let's do our top 4 teams next. So let's start with fourth. We'll go one by one. We'll both do fourth.
Oh, this is an order.
Oh yeah, this is in order. I want you to give me an order.
Oh.
I can give you some time to
give me
think.
1 second.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
give me
give you
1
some time to
second.
think of an order if you want. But the way we're going to do that, I guess I'll start then. Well, I'll do my
Okay,
fourth.
yeah.
You can do your fourth. Then we'll do each a third,
All right.
each a second, and each a first. Now I need to.
Okay, yeah.
I definitely know my top 3, but my fourth, I'm struggling a little bit with. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go fourth. Am I? Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say RRQ finished fourth.
Oh, I thought you were about to say Billy.
No, that would be insane. I think Billy crash out after making it through Swiss. I'm not stupid. Like I think Billy make it through Swiss, and then I think they go home.
Oh, okay. They did their job.
Yeah, they did their job. They get rid of, I don't know. They get rid of Genji, and then
Genji.
Yeah,
they get rid of Genji.
Yeah.
Oh man. RQ fourth. Okay. I think that's fair.
Chobra, who do you have finishing in fourth place?
I would actually have to go with RQ.
Interesting. So I mean, but I like this. Again, this is fitting, and obviously this is right now, right? Like this is very difficult to do because we don't know the playoff games, right? Like I'm sure if Team Heretics or Sentinels, came out of the Swiss and they looked amazing, and then RRQ draw them, by the time we're doing our playoff pick'ems, maybe we wouldn't have them finishing fourth because they're probably, we might think they're going to lose that game.
Could be.
But if they get BLG in my universe, then all of a sudden it becomes a lot more possible.
I don't know. I just have a lot of faith in a team that does like to have their own interpretations a little bit, like per meta, but also now has time to ante, and they're like really good at ante. They have like 2 of some of the best, like not necessarily all the way in the world. Like I wouldn't say confidently they're the 2 best in the world, but I would argue that they should always be included in like 2 out of the top 3 best antes in Pacific, both Ewok and Warbirds. And I would say that Crazy Guy, I always have to remind people this. People like to meme about Jemkin's 0-kill Reyna game. But to me, watching that live at the venue, to me, it was very clear that it was Crazy Guy who like single-handedly shut him down with the reads and the positions. So I think that combination just benefits a lot, actually. Like people will say, oh, they're a team that hasn't played internationally, so maybe not getting to play in the Swiss stage, they don't get the warm-up, it doesn't work out for them. I think, they get to watch a new patch, they get to download everybody what they're doing. That works out really well for that team, in my opinion, actually.
Yeah, I think I do think there is something sometimes to the teams that like starting playoffs do worse because they aren't used to the stage and they aren't, and I do think there is something to that, but I think in this tournament that is offset and potentially even more so by the fact that teams will be playing different comps on each map. You know, the meta will be a bit more open in terms of things that you can play, and having those VODs will be more important. And like you get the extra prep time, you get to see what's going on.
Exactly.
And you'll have time to digest, and like for the other team, right? Like for instance RRQ, right? They're playing Teo on pretty much every map. Right? So that, well, they won't be. If you're playing RRQ in your first playoff game, well, they won't be.
You have no idea.
That they literally could come out with anything. And I think not only I think the difference about this specific time period as well is not only could they come out with anything, but it's like it's not just on like a decent portion of the maps. It's not just like Teo for Sova, right? Like maybe on certain maps like Acend or something, like oh they were playing Teo, they'll probably just play Sova KO and it'll be fine, whatever. But like on like a map like Pearl, they could play double Senti all of a sudden. They could play double Duelist, could play double Smokes, they could play double Initiate. Like you don't know, and that's gonna like, you know, going versus a double Duelist comp to a double Senti comp, like, you know, everything changes, right? So I do think that is a more of a bigger advantage for the kind of playoff teams this time around. But I guess we'll have to see, and obviously the draw will probably be pretty important to how that all goes. But let's move on to third place. Do you want to give me your... So we both have RRQ 4th. Sure. Give me your third place team for Masters Toronto.
I will have Team Heretics in third.
God, this might end up being a bit of a boring reveal to this, because I too have picked Team Heretics to finish third. Go on, you tell me first, Joe, but why Heretics third? Like why not have them go further? What's going to limit them at third?
For me, I just think that they will continue to be like, I think Heretics is one of those teams that on paper, this should feel like a better patch on paper, right? Obviously, we don't know for a fact, but they should be one of those that benefit. But I don't know if it's like they are like the team that benefits. And if they just benefit alongside everybody else, from what I've seen in stage 1, where it's like, yeah, you looked kind of like you were about to get back in form, and then you couldn't really make it happen. Like as soon as you get shut down a couple of times, it felt like they had a couple cool ideas on their reads on the opponent, and if that didn't work out, suddenly you were drawing a blank for a couple rounds, and it took you a little while to get back into it. And I think once you're in the top 3, you can't have that anymore. And obviously, I mean, they are a team that's gone to multiple grand finals, so they are capable of doing it when push comes to shove. But I think we just have other teams right now where it's like, we know they'll do it better.
Okay.
It just comes down to that. Yeah.
That makes sense. I think most people can agree that like Team Heretics finishing in the top 3 would not be that surprising. I think what's interesting, I'd be very interested in seeing how many people actually believe, especially coming off that kind of destructive loss to Fnatic, how many people believe that Heretics can actually win? Because I feel like a lot of people will, like us, pick them to finish quite well, but I kind of doubt if many people will pick them to win. I would almost be interested in the ratio of like, 60% of people pick them to finish in the top 4, but only 2% pick them to win, which obviously would make really no sense. Like if so many people think that this is a good team, like that would make no sense. But I feel like that is the vibe around Team Heretics.
Yeah, it's also just the manner, like you said, the manner in which they lost that grand final against Fnatic, right? And like, yes, Fnatic played very well, but like Boo, it's one of those things where I think it's kind of coincides with the narrative around Boo of, if you ask people who watch carefully, they will agree that Boo's a good IGL. Like people will say Boo's a good IGL, but he rarely gets brought up as an amazing IGL. And I don't know if that's fair, quite frankly, personally. I think sometimes he does show that he is an amazing IGL, but it's not impactful enough compared to, you know, say Valen or, you know, whoever else. So I think it kind of goes side by side with that. And that, obviously, when it comes to IGLing, we can't just compare 1-to-1. Like it's the team and the comms and who else is doing whatever. And that might just be maybe the way that Heretics functions as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, and I've said this before, like all of Team Heretics, I feel like when you have like good players everywhere, everyone kind of maybe gets underrated a bit because everyone.
Yeah.
Because then there's always like, well, you're not carrying the team. Well, yeah, I'm not carrying their team because everyone is winning their fights a good amount of the time, right? So there isn't potential to carry, right? Like, like on RRQ, they let Jemkin, you know, take a lot of their fights because he's more likely to win it than the other players, basically. So it makes more sense. Or like on really any Aspas team, right? Or for the maybe aside, well, interesting. Maybe aside from the Loud team that won champs, you know, on pretty much every other Aspas team, the team goes, well, Aspas, you take the fight. We'll set you up for you to take the fight. Whereas on Team Heretics, I do feel it's a bit more, you know, everyone everyone go take a fight if they want to, because we kind of trust you all. So you all end up not shining maybe as bright because, you know, you're all shining a decent amount.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's move on to second place. So I'll start with my second place team, and then you can dive into yours. My second place team is Sentinels.
Ooh, whoa! Sentinels going to the grand finals.
Sentinels going to the grand finals. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll share mine first before I ask a couple questions. I have G2 in second place.
Don't do that to them, Chobra. You can't do that to them.
I mean, it feels bad, but in fact,
God,
if I didn't have faith in them, they would be lower, actually. So it's not like I'm trying to bump them down.
Yeah, but it's just sad in terms of, God, if G2 do finish second at this tournament, the narrative around G2 for champs would be rough. Like, they literally, would have to win champs. Otherwise, they'll be known as, like, the forever chokers, like, forever.
Yeah.
You know, they even more so than, like, who is it right now? Team Heretics and Paper Rex, right? Are, like, the main... Those are the only two teams who've lost two finals, right?
Yeah.
So they would join that club. Not a club you want to be in. The 0-2 club.
True.
In grand finals.
Yeah.
And back-to-back as well. I mean, Team Heretics did do it back-to-back as well. God, that's rough for them. I would say it's even worse. I would say it's even worse. Like, Team Heretics, like, thinking back, God, they lost back-to-back finals, and one of them was champs. So, and they lost all the regionals. And one of them was champs. Like, and then the season ends, and it's like, you can't do anything about it. You're just like sitting there in a pit of sadness for months. That's really tough. But okay, G2 again. Okay. Well, you want to ask me about Sentinels?
Yeah. I mean, do you think this is off the back of like any certain player, or is it like, what are you seeing in them that you think is top 2 worthy? Because I agree that I'm pretty excited for Sentinels, but to me, it'd be a punt to put them top 2 or even top 3, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think most people, like you know, you kind of said, like, most people probably have them getting out of the Swiss fairly comfortably. When playoff comes around, you know, I would suggest that most people probably have them maybe like winning a game and then going out, or, you know, maybe 4th, right? Like somewhere in there. For me, the reason that I'm going Sentinels in second is because I think they'll be able to... I think in Swiss, they'll just have an experience diff over almost everyone, apart from, like, you know, Gen G Heretics. But, you know, they don't have to win all of those games. As long as they don't actually play both of those teams, they'll be, you know, I think they should be fine. I think that they're going to get a big buff from the fact that they were banning Fracture before, and their Sunset historically has been pretty good. So they're getting rid of a permaban and adding in a map that was good for them. So I think that obviously... is just good. I think that they are a team that can pivot quite a lot in terms of, like, if they want to play... They've got quite a flexible team in terms of, if they want to play double Duelist, they could put Narrate on Duelist. He's played that before. If they want to play double Sentinel, they could easily put John and Zelsis on Sentinel. If they want to play double Controller, Zelsis can easily play, like, Viper or something for them. So they've got a very flexible team that I think will allow them to come up with some maybe creative ideas, right, that people haven't maybe seen before. And so I just think a lot of things are kind of... I think the tail nerf will be good for Sentinels, basically. I think that they will benefit quite a lot from that. And I think the map changes will benefit them quite a lot as well. And so... And I think most people already agree that they were a good team before, right? They were already very good, like, you know, a top 5-6 team in the tournament. And I think that those things will just push them even higher.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, with the maps and all the patch, all of that. Okay. I can see that.
And then now, Chobra, let's talk about winners. It's time to talk about who you have winning. I have a sneaking suspicion of who you're about to say, based on what you've said before. But go on.
Odd.
Tell me who it is.
I think the winner of Masters Toronto will be none other than the greatest team of all time, Fnatic. I think they're coming back. I think we're reusing the script from Tokyo. They're coming in hot. And I think they're going to lift the trophy.
I mean, that would be... And again, if we talk about, like, storylines for teams to win, I think there are... Like, the Fnatic storyline of if they won, you know, you are looking at, like... I think... There definitely would be some people, and I would hate this argument of going, well, they never won a champs, so they're not the best because they never won a champ. And I would just be like, I'd just roll my eyes and just shake my head. But as if teams aren't trying to win the Masters when they're there. Oh yeah, like Heretics in the grand final of Shanghai, they didn't care. They actually just didn't care. If you ask them, they're like, yeah, just a friendly, isn't it, for champs? No, but I think the story. I think almost certainly if Fnatic did win, Boaster would almost certainly be regarded as the best IGL ever. That would almost be like an absolute lock. Chronicle as well. To be fair, like Chronicle, so Crashies, Alphia, they would all put their names into, like, you know, GOAT status of certain things if this did happen. Because Crashies, of course, will have won multiple at that point, including a Champs Grand Final as well. Chronicle would have, what, 4? So he would have the most of all time of anyone, and probably would take a, other than if the other Fnatic players didn't win without him at some point, you know, might take a while for other people to get that many as well. So he would definitely be, you know, known as one of the best. It would be a very interesting way of doing it. But all of this is to say that, Chobra, you got the wrong script, because this is actually G2's revenge. This is the G2 revenge tournament. They are winning this tournament.
You make it sound like Riot likes to come up with new scripts with G2 not taking second place. That's crazy.
I know it seems like a bit of a boring script. Like, you know, it's perhaps the most predictable script, right? Most people, I think, would say that they are the tournament favorites. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's not only that G2 just win this tournament.
No, you're not about to say it.
I'm going to say that they will only lose one map.
One map?
They will only lose one map. They will play 4 games, and they will only lose one map.
Do you have a suspicion on where that map will be lost? Like before or during grand finals? That's all I want to know.
Before. It won't happen in the grand final. They're going to clean sweep the grand final. Against
Actually more believable.
In my universe.
Actually, since you have Sun going, I can see that.
Yeah.
Wow. What? Only one map.
Only one map. They don't. It would be even better though if it did happen in the grand final. Imagine if it happened in the grand final versus Sen, and Sen hold on to my camera's gone all blur. Sen hold on to their legacy of being undefeated in a tournament by like winning a useless map 3 as G2 stroll to a 3-1 win in the grand final. Sen fans would just be clinging onto that. But yeah, that's what I'm going to say. And really, if you are going to go undefeated in any tournament, the second Masters is probably the easiest one to do it, no? Because you start, like, if you start in the playoffs, you only have to win 4 games.
True.
So I guess this one is the easiest one to do it. But
bold. That
is bold. But why not? Like, if it happens, I'll look like a genius. And if it doesn't, no one will care.
True.
That's what you got to learn about. Welcome to content creation, Chobra.
Well, I mean, I'm the one picking Fnatic. I don't think I'm really missing out too much on that. I am.
True.
But okay, tell me about your G2 pick though. Is it just because like they just are the strongest team? Like,
well, again, G2 are another team that they were also banning Fracture, so they're also picking up a free map. And I think that G2 with a full 7 map pool, I just think that's not something that's gonna be very good for other teams, particularly. And I think that
that's fair.
I think losing Teo might pivot them more to other duelists other than Yoru, and I think that might help Jorgamo. And I think Jorgamo might be able to pop off more. And I think if you get a Leaf, Trent, and Jorgamo all kind of frying at the same time, I think a lot of teams are then just like just won't have enough to keep up with that, and also G2's kind of good team play. But I think also G2 went through their struggle. I think we saw G2 struggle. I think their struggle happened at the perfect time. Because I think teams, you're not going to have a flawless, run throughout an entire season. At some point,
right,
you're going to have a struggle. And I think we saw it during the playoffs there for G2, where they almost lost to 100 Thieves. They almost lost to EG. They had lost to Sentinels before in the playoffs as well before that. And then they came through that and ended up winning Americas. And I think that now they've been through that struggle, that they will be like, we've got this. I think G2 will just be calm, thinking that we've got this. They're in Americas as well, right? Like they've got they don't have to travel nearly as much. The crowd, I mean, if they're playing against Sen in the final, I guess the crowd might be against them. But for most of their games, the crowd will be with them.
Yeah, that's true. I don't consider that.
I'm feeling it. I want to know the crowd's reaction to Fnatic, because Fnatic obviously are a very popular team, but they're an EMEA team in Americas.
Yeah.
Boo them. I really want rivalries in this. Boo Fnatic. Yes. If you go to Masters Toronto, get everyone to boo them. And I also hate when people say, why are they booing? I hated at lock-in when people were like, why are they booing them? That's good. And if I was on stage, I would want to be booed. I would love getting booed. And I would love winning the game and giving it to the fans afterwards.
Yep. I mean, because you're like on their home turf. Of course, they're not friendly. Like you're enemies. Like you are. Yeah. You shouldn't be at each other's throat, but you are enemies. I agree with that. I agree with that take.
When I say boo, I don't mean like you have to shout profanities at them and say terrible things to them. But like just booing, who cares? Yep. No one's ever gonna say like, oh, they booed me, and so I'm, like no.
Right.
You're just gonna be like, oh, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Don't
or
threaten
you
them. Yeah, but
don't do that. Don't do
that. No.
And then be like, V told us to.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, let's get to the final award, and then we can go home. So you've got Fnatic winning the tournament.
Yeah.
But who would be your overall MVP of said tournament?
Tough choices, right? You've got obviously, Boaster as perhaps now cementing himself as the greatest IGL. You got like the star duelist Kayak, and I think a lot of people, if they heard me say Fnatic, they think surely it's Chronicle. But the reason they're going to win Toronto, it's in the script, TMV. You keep telling me it's wrong. It's because Crashies has now lifted EMEA's trophy, and he's coming back to America. And I'm taking one back to EMEA with me.
Oh my God.
And he's going to lift that trophy and whatever accessory they're giving to the FPP.
I love it. It's so unhinged. You got on me for BLG. You got Crashies winning MVP.
If Fnatic won, could you not see?
Of course he could win it. He'd be 1 of 5, and he'd probably be more likely than Boaster. But he'd have to put it in. He'd have to play the bet. He'd have to play better than he has to even get on your top 10 list. He's gonna have to play better than that.
But is there not also, like, just like some of these other players, another chance that Crashies also gets to go back to more comfort picks, like a Sova? Like, are we not seeing Crashies?
I'm not saying Crashies will play bad. No, I love it. It's a great pick. Stick with your guns. I love it. It's a great pick.
Oh, I believe in it. I almost, quite frankly, just put Fnatic winning because Crashies had to be my... Like, no, here's what... It's
Fnatic bomb out 5th, 6th, but Crashies plays so well in those 3 games that he's still MVP. His VLR rating is 3.
A 3 rating would be crazy. But it's almost like what you've been saying about YZ and some of these other picks is that I think it's time. I think it's the perfect moment that Crashies will prove people wrong, like even more, right? People doubted him when he was picked up by Fnatic, slightly quiet at kickoff. Now in stage 1, people are like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. But everyone's still like, yeah, but you have Kayak, you got Chronicle, right? Boaster's calling, Alpha here still pops off. And it's like, oh, but I feel like he's actually acting as such a good part of the glue that keeps them together that I think in a big match like, if the finals in Toronto overall, he's going to take it. Listen, it's going to be his big smile, his big grin on the stage.
Well, it's bold. It's certainly bold. I'll give you that. My MVP it's going to be very simple. I told you this is going to happen. Trent's going to be the MVP. He's going to be the highest rated player. Everyone's going to be like, wow, it turns out that Trent was good before Teo. Wow, Trent. Wow, really well played, Trent. And I'm going to sit here and laugh at you all and say, yeah, you're all fucking idiots. Obviously.
Both of them initiators.
Yeah.
We didn't pick duelists,
2 initiator MVPs. I can't even remember all of the MVPs. Who won it in Shanghai? Do you remember? Who won Gen G won it? Was it
Shanghai?
Was it Karen?
I think it was actually Meteor.
Or was it Meteor?
Yeah, because Meteor has 2 MVPs from both of his masters. Okay. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Kang obviously won it for champs. So yeah. Meteor. And then I guess Zekken won it for Sentinels, I think. I would assume.
I think he might have last year, yeah. I can't remember actually.
Yeah. Picking I mean, I guess Meteor's won it. I guess he played some duelists, but he mostly wasn't. So yeah, it's on the cards. Okay. Well, that I think you couldn't get more thorough than that. And this will probably, I guess, be coming out. Masters Toronto has probably, just started. But hey, we're talking about who's going to win this thing. So this thing will age well, I'm sure. I'm sure my Billy prediction has aged spectacularly well. If you're watching this like a couple days late, I'm sure it's going great. And
no worries.
No worries whatsoever. Those percentages that we put next to each team, those won't be screenshotted at all, I'm sure. Okay, thank you for your time, Chobra. I don't know what time you're sleeping. Oh, Masters Toronto, the time zone must be pretty rough for you, right?
It starts at 1 a.m. or midnight.
A midnight start.
1 a.m. 1 a.m. because it's noon there.
So you're gonna have to stay up. So you're hoping for some short days. You're hoping for some 2 hours.
I mean, quite frankly, yeah. Some of them.
That's a tough one, a 1 a.m. start. Yeah. I mean, the worst one I had to do was Tokyo, which was a 4 a.m. start for me. But like that, I just slept and got up super early.
Right. You just get up early. You just have an early bird. Whereas 1 a.m. is always worse because you just like flip your entire day. Because I think Reykjavik always landed right around start like 1 a.m. for us here, like midnight or 1 a.m. So that is right. But hey, I mean, listen, all the Send fans
you're right. We should host all the tournaments in EMEA. You're totally right. Yeah. We should just put them all in EMEA for the good time zone.
That's not what I was saying, but I guess that's one conclusion you can make. We'll go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Champs will be a good time. Well, not good, but a watchable time zone for you.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too bad.
Exactly. Put everything in EMEA. I agree. Let's go back to 2021 when it was all in EMEA.
Yeah, and we were all online and no one could travel.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you for being with me, Chobra, for this. I assume you will be watching all of Masters Toronto.
Yes, I'll have done the press conferences as well, and then I'll be watching all of it. So I'll be online. I'll be ready to accept your apology forms for Crashies. Personally, I'll take them.
If Crashies ends up MVP, I'm genuine. I'm gonna I hope it happens because then I'm gonna pimp this podcast to the moon. Like we're gonna be saying, look at the guests that we get on here. It's amazing. So yeah, I hope it happens. But thanks for being with me. And that was Cosmic Divide, episode 51 with William Chobra. And the next one might be after Masters Toronto. I don't know, but it might be in between. We'll see. But thank you for being with me, Chobra. Goodbye.